Okay, we're going to do another decoupage project. The first one we did using napkins and glaze was what I would call 101 because the napkins are really thin, porous, they don't wrinkle very much, you don't get bubbles, and they're very simple to work with and you get instant gratification. We're going to go on to a little bit more of a challenge, which is still very easy but just needs a couple tricks to get it right. I'm going to be using a really lovely paper from Decoupaging Papers, which Vintage Market Design carries, and if you ever get a chance to go through their showroom with all these papers, it is truly amazing and you will be in trouble because there's so many patterns to choose from. It's a nice thick paper, beautiful classic designs, usually French inspired, and what I've done is get my sample board ready to go for the decoupage. I've got a coat of Block It primer on here because I just always like to prime things, especially if I'm doing it for a client. I want to know that it's going to last a long time and that I'm not going to have tannins come through from the wood. And then I used Duck Egg Blue, one of my favorite colors in the line, 2 coats on the sample board. And then I went ahead and took the Decoupaging paper and I just put the sample board upside down on it, take a pencil and draw around it and then cut my pattern, and then if it's over any place I do it really simply and just kind of push it, and if I have any areas that are overlapping a lot, it's just like sewing really, I'll just take the scissors and cut that little bit off. Now I'm not as strict about the fit on this or on it lining up exactly because with this heavier paper and this technique I'm going to do a lot of distressing. So you're not going to see a nice clean little rectangle of paper when we're done here. I'm going to apply this with the Paper It product, and then we're going to let it dry, and then I'm going to take a sanding block and really go to town on it. And what happens is it goes through the paper, through the paint, through the primer, right down to the wood, and then we'll go back and go over it with our dark wax, which will grab on the paper, on the paint, and on the wood, and give you a really nice rustic look. It's more of a country look and it's not so perfect and refined, but it's one of my favorite looks. We really do a lot of pieces like this because they're easy to live with. You don't have to worry about putting a glass on them. If you take the piece through the door and hit it against the door jamb, no problem. It's just a little bit more antiquing on it. So let me start out with the Paper It. This is a decoupage medium that is a really nice water-based medium. Very low VOC, hardly any odors, nice to use inside, not messy, not overly sticky, and I just dip the brush in about 1/2 inch and go over my surface. And you want to go for a medium amount. You don't want too much, you don't want it to be wet and puddly, and you don't want it so little that it's not going to grab the paper. The Decoupaging paper is heavier than the napkin I used before, so I'm going to make sure I have complete coverage there and I can see in the reflection from the light that I do. And then I'm just going to take my paper and line it up. And we very often use a credit card to do this. Half the time I just use my fingers. And especially when it's a piece this small, I don't have too many wrinkles. But you can use a credit card and be careful not to go over it too hard like I did last time. And just give it a couple runovers, and it gets rid of all the wrinkles and bubbles and gives you a really nice look. And if you do feel any little wrinkles at all while the Paper It is still damp, you can just take your finger and kind of work it out. Kind of get in there with your fingers and get it all on. And it's great paper for decoupaging. I very rarely have a problem with it. I find most of the time it goes on without any wrinkles and bubbles. But again, don't worry about it being too perfect. I like to always go over a decoupage product with either the glazes or the crowning touch, or today we're going to do the wax. And what that does is darken the paper, darken the paint, make it all come together so that it looks like it's all of a piece and not just something put on top of something else. So I'll get rid of that credit card before I get in trouble. And I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to put another coat of Paper It over the top of the paper to really seal it.